Hey guys, this is Mia from Travelpreneur Tribe. I am here today for a live video with Muhammad, and I am trying to bring him on right now. So give me 1 second. Okay, I am taking him right now. Um, all right. Join. I just want to give you a little bit about who I am. I am the founder of Travelpreneur Tribe, and we help companies start and grow their businesses while traveling the world. So I see actually, hey Mal, you just joined. So
Going.
hi, how are you?
Not bad. Thank you, Mia. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Sure,
Hello,
thanks,
Tribe.
thanks for joining. And I
Brilliant.
think we have few live viewers actually joining. So I see Zach and Hannah. So
Aloha.
hi everybody. So so thanks for joining everybody. And today we're here with Mohammed, who has actually started a few of his companies. He has few startups on his belt, and he is gonna tell us how it is to what is his experience about starting these companies, what is some of the things that he has learned, and the strategies that he has put around for you on what it really takes to go from being a corporate to starting your own business. And he calls this, and he can tell more about it, but he calls this a service. And that is actually a 7 keys to startup success. So if you're interested in knowing what the 7 keys are, please stay tuned because he will be talking about it. But before we get into the details, can you just tell us a little bit about you, how you got started, where you're based, and just your story?
Brilliant. Hi. So yeah, my name's Muhammad Malik, or just Malik. I'm based in London. So after graduating from university, a CAS business school, I started work at Deloitte as a financial auditor. I then worked in the finance department of an investment bank. And I remember the day that when I was working through some really mind-numbing work, and I decided, enough is enough. Now's the time to focus my energy and my time on what I'm passionate about, and essentially become my own boss. I began with doing what I love, mentoring and coaching. I helped students um, get into elite jobs in the city. Then I launched my first kind of proper venture, which was a recruitment agency, which actually flopped in spectacular fashion, to be honest. Uh, so after that, I launched Speaker, which was an agency for public speakers, so connecting public speakers to conferences and events in London. Um, it went well at first, and then that also kind of didn't go to plan at all. So after kind of bootstrapping these two failed startups, if that wasn't enough, like in my personal life, I went through a lot of problems in my kind of family and relationships, deaths, and a lot of issues that affected me personally. So I went through kind of a very rough time, and that's when I decided to kind of like focus on myself. I trained in life coaching and hypnotherapy, NLP, CBT, did kind of like courses in those, and I invested in learning about kind of the mental alchemy. I spent time learning from investing in courses from those like Brendan Burchard, Jack Canfield, and then with that kind of renewed mindset and renewed strength, I went back into the world of startups again, and thankfully I kind of like pivoted my speakers agency to go into speakers training, and finally something worked. I began this, and after that I launched a watch brand in 2017. Yes, a social impact watch brand called Virage London. And at that time, it kind of, friends that were, new to startups, wanting to launch something, they kind of reached out to me also. And I began coaching part-time as well. So coaching them, utilizing the best of what I've learned over the kind of 4-year period in terms of life coaching as well as startup failure and success. So my most recent project that I'm kind of like passionate about is an international development project, essentially, which is a blockchain-based microfinance app utilizing kind of artificial information just to, sorry, artificial intelligence rather, to allow peer-to-peer lending, basically. So yeah, that's the kind of journey right now that I'm on. Yeah,
Okay,
brilliant.
well, you sound like you have a lot going on. So, but I'm pretty
A lot.
sure, yeah, from those first failed two companies, I mean, those must have been like you have a long running list of all the lessons learned and the things that I'm sure that you will never do again.
Definitely. Oh God, tell me about
Yeah,
it.
and actually, we have Zach. He's saying that, investing in your learning is so important. So, respect.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we're all here to learn from each other, to grow together, right? And
yeah,
it doesn't matter whether you're just on a beginning, right? Whether you're just starting out or whether you have, few years that you've been in business. We're still all on the learning journey, right? It's just at what level you are, but it never
yeah.
stops. So no matter where you are.
Exactly. And I mean, for millennials, often like what I've seen in the millennial kind of entrepreneurship spaces, they let and kind of the good thing about the millennials is they learn quickly, as in within a short space of time, they'll make the mistakes and then they'll learn as well. So like 2 years may mean like 4 years for them in terms of the lessons learnt as well, because they kind of go all out as well. So yeah, brilliant. It's always a learning, continuous learning as
Yeah.
well. As well, yeah.
Okay. So let's get to the learning part. Let's get to the nitty-gritty of it. So tell us more about like your service. What is
Yeah.
it?
All right, brilliant. So as a part of this interview, kind of you asked me as to, how would I kind of summarize the lessons learned, right? There's a lot to speak about, but essentially, you might have heard the phrase that entrepreneurship is all about service, right? So to break down service, for me, kind of like the way that I look at it is 7 principles. So if you were to kind of make each letter stand for something, this is how I would kind of put it. So the first letter S for me, it stands for the self. So as Zach mentioned about kind of investing in our learning. The journey really starts with ourselves, looking at ourselves and our essence, so to speak. And the Nobel Peace Prize winner Mohammed Yusuf, he mentioned how we're all in essence entrepreneurs. So like if you look at our ancestors, we were actually bakers, farmers, salespeople. It's in our human tradition to be entrepreneurs. So just looking at surnames like Fisher, for example, is quite self-explanatory. You got Smith, which is derived from blacksmith, whitesmith, goldsmith, meaning metal worker. And you've got in India, we've got names like chaiwala, which means a tea, somebody who makes tea. And you've got dudwala, which means somebody who milkman. My own surname, it means owner of land, so kind of like we used to be farmers. So Malik, it means rural farmland owners. It's unfortunate that kind of our education system now and the corporate world has, for the most part, taken us away from this tradition, and it's built a new tradition which we're all familiar with, which is the 9 to 5 corporate rat race. But kind of like before breaking free from that, from the 9 to 5, that is, it's really important to kind of assess yourself and your situation. So taking the leap can often be much easier if you're younger and have kind of like less
Mm,
complex financial needs. Um, Especially because in the first few years, as kind of, if you speak to any people that have gone through the startup journey, the cash flows are very uneven, what we call kind of going from a feast to famine feast to famine cash flow. And kind of looking back, people often, wish they'd have a larger war chest, so to speak, of money, especially, at least 6 months. So kind of like 6 months of expenditure cover, especially considering for you guys in the States, the cost of healthcare. And Eric Ries, right, the originator of lean startup methodology, he mentions, he describes startups in such a beautiful way. I just love this definition. He says, startups, it is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme
certainty.
uncertainty. Yeah, so with that, I mean, with that extreme uncertainty, of course, it's not only the financial uncertainty, but it's that emotional roller coaster, so to speak. So with that, I think that the two best ways that people mention to kind of like to kind of deal with that emotional roller coaster and the financial roller coaster is to seek out a mentor, or a coach, right? So ideally somebody who has startup experience. There's a lot of business coaches out there who don't have any experience at all in startups. So it's best to get someone well versed in coaching and with experience in startups. And the second thing is really, really important is obviously to avoid burnout, making time for your own self, right? Making, for example, exercise a part of your daily routine,
So important. Yeah.
like whether it's kind of resistance training or what's it called? HIT training. Yeah, that's the one. HIIT. Sorry. Um, so just focusing on that mindset, and yeah. So that's the first letter. So with the next letter we've got is E.
So just
E.
before you move on to the next one, I just do want to
Yeah.
do a quick comment on, the self. And yes, I mean, that
Cool.
is really so important. It's like the first
Mm,
key, right? Because if you are not in line, with your mindset in what your business, even if you start your business, you're not going to be successful, right? So that
of
is the
course.
key to be in a right state of mind in order to proceed. And for me
Yes.
personally, one of the things when it comes, to the self, yes, it's like exercise, being healthy, but also big
Mm,
part of for myself personally is gratitude and visualization. So,
definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think Oprah Winfrey, she mentions how, you know, her advice was to start every day with gratitude, and being grateful. And a lot of entrepreneurs and kind of like, moguls, that they have this gratitude list. Every morning they recite,
Mm,
I'm grateful for family, for the roof over my head, for the eyes, like simple things. We can't, you can't count our blessings. So starting in that mindset, it enhances productivity so much.
yes,
100%.
definitely. So,
So just quickly, so the next kind of letter, E in service, for me that stands for ego, right? And looking around in kind of like the startup world, it's really unfortunate to see that so many startups, right, they're based on the wants and egos of their founders. So wanting to look cool, kind of like wanting to be the biggest badass or badass, as you guys say. So the entrepreneur, kind of like this entrepreneur mindset, right, is a sure kind of like recipe for disaster, because ego-driven entrepreneurs also kind of fall victim to what's called, you might have heard of the shiny object syndrome, right? And they kind of fail to see their venture kind of through from concept to MVP before coming up with another idea that they find more kind of appealing and cooler, and they shift their focus again and again. So increasing your self-awareness, whether that be through meditation or being present and mindful in your work, can save you from falling into this kind of ego trap. So yeah, so you become service focused, have clarity on your vision and your end user, and you don't let your ego get in the way of getting your hands dirty, essentially becoming a jack of all trades, as a lot of entrepreneurs have to become for your startup, realizing that every job is your job until you build a procedure that you can automate and then you can outsource. So yeah, that's that letter. Brilliant. So yeah, the next letter is R. Unless you got anything to say, should we go to that letter
yeah,
now?
no, I mean, for me, for what you mentioned around the ego is, yes, like a lot of people have a business idea, right? And they don't
Yeah.
do the validation, or they don't do the necessary validation, right? And they think, oh yeah, but this is so great, and but they haven't gone through that customer development process and really figured
Yeah.
out what it needs, what your customer needs and wants, and then build the business around that. But in order for
Mm,
you to be able to do that, yes, you totally have to put your ego to the side, because your business might not end up being what you initially imagined it to be. So
exactly.
you have to be like completely like, okay, I need to be open to, what the customers want and where most chances to actually, be profitable and to make money. So,
Yeah, that's so true. I just want to give a quick example of I was watching Gordon Ramsay's, I think, Hell's Kitchen last night, right? So there was this Italian chef. His restaurant was his baby, right? And he was so keen on keeping the original menu, which was like a 20 combination pizza. So this guy wasn't based, I think, New York or New Jersey, I can't remember. He was so keen on that. But Gordon Ramsay, the expert of experts, advised him to change his menu. And he was so reluctant. And at the end of the day, when Gordon Ramsay left, he went back to his old menu, lost all those new customers, and lost all that kind of, that tremendous, what do you call it, vibe that Gordon Ramsay brought in, just for the sake of the ego. So yeah, that's definitely, I agree with you, Mia, on that. Just keeping that to the side for the sake of your business, for the sake of your customers. Definitely. So the next letter that it takes us to is R, right? So R for me stands for two things: routine and research. So with regards to routine, it's key really to kind of develop a productive, foolproof daily routine. So Oprah Winfrey, as we mentioned, she obviously mentions to start the day off with gratitude. And also another kind of key advice that entrepreneurs have for the first hour of your day is to focus on your MIT, your most important task, right? And also for those who are considering to launch their startup, a really good method is obviously, the side hustle approach. So splitting your day between the 9 to 5 and your 5 to 9. Right, so from the 9 to 5, you stay focused on your day job, as tempting it may be to think about your creative ideas and stuff. And then from your 5 to 9, you purely focus on your side hustle. It may be an 8 to 6 or a 6 to 9, depending on your job.
So actually now I'm just thinking about it because I'm like, wait, like 5 to 9
Yeah.
p.m. That seems very like, but maybe yes, like maybe like from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. Like yes, that would work better.
Oh, tell me about it. When it comes to jobs, yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, having some sort of a split somewhere, or however you can do that. And yeah, so and I think with that 5 to 9, the evening, let's say that the second half of the day,
Okay.
it's really second half is obviously try to. I think the key thing to first do is obviously research. So research kind of market trends, your idea, Google Trends, conduct interviews, and just kind of like a quick example from me when I wanted to research the viability of my watch brand. What I did was I photoshopped a mock-up of my watch and then kind of like gave that to influencers, Instagram influencers, to test if they liked the watch or not, without even having a product in my hand. So that's what I did. And similarly, like guys, you can develop a mock kind of like landing page on WordPress, Wix, or whatever, and gauge the engagement. You can even have kind of like mock Facebook ads to see your engagement as well. So yeah, that's that letter.
Yeah, so
That,
just Zach is saying, that it's so hard not to focus on your career while you're at work. So,
oh, it
right?
seems to be like that when the ideas come. It's like when you're focused on your work. And what I did was I had a small book of ideas. So every time I had something that was so good that I can't let it go, I'll just quickly note it down in a book and then get back to work and say, this is what I'm gonna research tonight, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be caught slipping by my manager, right? I'm Googling all this kind of like creative ideas. So yeah, make sure you just keep that note for later. And then just so yeah, brilliant. So we just got so the next letter, it's a quick one. It's value. Yeah, nice one, Zach. So yeah, you know how it feels like, isn't it? When you're tuned into your work and you're just like, oh God, wouldn't this be a great idea? And then and then you just sidetracked. So the next letter, value. It's a quick kind of like quote from Richard Branson, somebody who I look up to a lot. He said that a business, right, is simply an idea to make other people's lives better. So develop an idea that's focused on providing value or service. And some questions to trigger your idea. What do your friends, family, colleagues ask you for help with? What are you the go-to person for? What topics do you find yourself randomly reading around during work or when you're procrastinating? And what services and products do you regularly consume? And how do you think they can improve? Those are your ideas, basically. Yeah, so that's that letter.
Yeah, it's all about the value, right? Like, how do you provide more value? Because, I mean, there's so many online businesses and everybody is offering something, right? So, like, how do you stick out from the rest of them? How do you bring that value? Like, what makes you different? What makes you special? And how do you present yourself? But, obviously, like, if you're not providing any value, like, people are going to discover that pretty quickly, and you're
Exactly.
not going to be successful if you're just looking to like make money quickly or whatever. So really make sure that you think about what you're doing, what are you providing. And me personally, that's one of my things that I'm doing, my strategy on for 2019 is how I could provide more value in my social media, in my content, and just every
Exactly.
day. So yeah.
Brilliant. That's so true. And just another thing, in terms of money as well, a lot of entrepreneurs starting out, they have this kind of concept around money. Oh, money is the root of all evil. But if we look at it as value, then you realize that it's just an exchange of value. You're providing value, and you ought to receive that money. You're entitled to it. It's nothing evil at all. So just to kind of so the next point, just want to I know we've got a little bit, not too much time left, but I
Yeah.
just want to quickly mention. So the next letter in service is I. So I for me stands for incorporate. And this is a brilliant advice that I kind of received from a good friend who mentioned, even if it's just you right now and your ideas, run yourself like an organization basically. So form a kind of a draft business plan, a strategy, a marketing strategy, have a budget, a cash flow, decide how you will fund your idea, whether that's bootstrapping, using capital, equity, or a debt kind of base model, and audit yourself and your company. Look at yourself like different departments, right? So you've got your research and development. Are you doing any research and development? Are you constantly researching, developing, and testing your business model? And CSR, are you involved in kind of giving back, charity work, and so on? And never kind of downplay that, because that's essentially free PR, and it's something that's essential for your spirit as an entrepreneur as well. So corporate social responsibility. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, that is really important, but it's also really hard, right? Because so for
Mhm.
me personally, right? I mean, as a project manager, I have all of this team around me, right? So you have your marketing, you have your developers, the QA, your business, and everybody. And when you're in the corporate, you're like, okay, sure, you have a team of these people, and then everybody goes and do their own thing. And then when you run your
Mhm.
startup and you're trying to have the same meeting, and you're like, sure, where is my team? And then when you realize
Exactly.
that you're the person who actually has to
Wow.
done all of that work, then it comes to how do you prioritize as well, all of these tasks. But I can see, yes, you definitely need to have that. Think of every department. It just makes it a lot more challenging. But
And you're really organized, and from you a
yeah.
lot in terms of you're operating yourself like a company already. So that's brilliant. Yeah, excellent stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just a comment, I guess, on a previous point of value, what Zach is saying, in his opinion, like the way to stand out is to be
Mm.
yourself, right? Because nobody can really replicate that. And yeah, Zach, I totally agree with that. So, and he's like, if you stay true to your vision and values, that can lead to your business or brand becoming unique. So, good
Nice. So
point.
nice.
Yeah.
Nobody can replicate you exactly, and I personally believe that we all have our unique kind of gifts, and it's our purpose to kind of live those gifts and kind of help society and help the world essentially with our unique gifts, our unique talent. So 100% with you, Zach. That is very well said as well, very well. So the penultimate point that I would like to mention is continuous learning,
It's a big one.
this is such an amazing big point, right? So I want to kind of touch on it with a very kind of good example that really brings us to home. So once you've kind of incorporated, right, and you're focused, now you're ready for the sweet stuff, so to speak. So continuous learning through kind of trial and error, and kind of like rapid experimentation. redefining the problem is where the magic happens, I like to say. So it's part of, in my opinion, what kind of separates the entrepreneurs that we talked about, right, from the true entrepreneurs. Now, take the example of legendary hot dog eating champion Takeru Kobayashi, or Kobe, right? Perhaps half the size of his competitors. You can Google him, right? It's an incredible
I
story.
haven't heard of
So
him, but yes, I'm eager to learn more.
So he was able to kind of outperform his competition ridiculously, like by consuming twice as many hot dogs as them in the same time. So look at it from kind of like the lean startup methodology over here, right? So he redefined the problem he was trying to solve. What the other competitive eaters were asking themselves was, how could I fit more hot dogs in my stomach, right? Whereas Kobe, he asked a completely different question. His question was, how can I make one hot dog easier to eat? And guess what he did? Kobe began intensely experimenting with different techniques for sausage and bun consumption, right? We're talking about this like a corporation right now. So it was during this time that he crafted something that was a game changer. It's called the bun dip. What he did was he dipped the hot dog bun in a cup of water to break down the starch, right? And yes, and then he squeezed out the excess water and then tossed it into his mouth like a ball. So he was able to outperform his competition ridiculously. And in lean startup we call this kind of like experimentation, split testing, A/B testing, all of that. So yeah, he just changed the game completely through rapid testing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, continuous learning, rapid testing, and from for me, that is one of the things. Like really, even if you have your business up and running, right? How are you going to reach out to your existing customers and maybe create that second product, expand your
Definitely.
product, right? That you're really not the business owner who says in which direction your company or your product is going to go, but it's actually going to come from your customer feedback. So,
So true. And kind of my last point, I know we're a bit
yeah,
pressed for
and
time.
sorry, just before I just do want to say
Oh,
hi to Sharoz. He is watching, so thanks for joining.
sure.
I hope you
Oh,
find it
sure is.
useful. So we're just talking about
Uh,
seven things, seven key things to launch your startup, and we're actually on the last one, which is the end
right.
goal, I believe. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
go. Yeah, but we'll definitely I'll ping you kind of like the notes, the cliff notes, so to speak. Uh, but yeah, just quickly. So the last point, which arguably is the most important point, right, is your end goal. So stands for end goal, and that's kind of you need that why, right? You need a vision, a purpose, to get you through that grind that we spoke about. That emotional roller coaster, that hard work, failure, and that roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship. And as Steve Jobs once said in an interview with the Smithsonian Institute, he said, unless you have a lot of passion about this, you're not going to survive. You're going to give it up. So you've got to have an idea or a problem or a wrong that you want to write that you're passionate about. Otherwise, you're not going to have the perseverance to stick it through, right? And that's half the battle right there. So keeping that in mind, through the highs and lows of your entrepreneurship, that's the key thing as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also that in life, right? Without knowing what you really want, there's no way for you to get it. So if you don't know what you want as far as your business goes, how are you going to grow it? How are you going to get it? So be clear, know your goals, stick to them, and take it
100%.
from there. But yeah, actually, Zach has a really cool question for you. I mean, given that now we came to the last point, if you could just kind of like sum it up all and be like, okay, from like us talking for half an hour, what is the
Mm.
key really, the summary that folks should focus on?
Very good point. I would say that kind of out of the points that we mentioned, beginning with yourself, right? And obviously, depending on what stage you are in your startup, if your idea hasn't kind of lifted off the ground, I would say a key thing is to adopt that side hustle approach, split your time. And it comes to kind of the first point is obviously having your mindset intact, and we spoke about that, the why, right? The second thing is organizing your time in a way, and we'd say depending on what your current situation is, the side hustle. So focus on your 9 to 5, your 5 to 9. Make sure you split your time evenly. And then I think out of all the points that we mentioned in terms of business, right, the key thing is that rapid experimentation. You know, be Kobe, be that kind of like disruptor, be that innovator within whatever field you are, and know that that's going to come only through experimentation, only through, you know, as Gary Vee would say, like going out there and doing it, right? Action over everything. So yeah, I mean, those are the kind of the key points I would say. So rapid experimentation, keeping your why in mind, and also splitting your time. You know, so yeah, I think those would be the kind of the three things.
Yeah, great. I hope that answers your question, Zach. And I see hearts all over the place, so I'll just presume yes. So Um, so just to kind of like
Thank you.
try to wrap it up, I know that you have some goodies that you want to share with people in the group, and that's really going to help them get one step closer to whether, you know, they're just looking to start their business. So you want to tell us a little more about that? What did you, you know, put together and what it is that you want to
Yeah,
share with everybody?
brilliant. So in terms of kind of putting everything together, what I like to call conscious driven design, right, is really keep, you know, being why focused, letting your ego kind of, you know, bringing your ego to the side when it comes to your products, right? And that's what we call conscious driven design. So I've created a guide for you guys, you know, information packed, but with a lot of practical things. So taking you through what's called the design thinking process, which I think is, you know, when it comes to ideation, it's perhaps kind of like more user focused, and then, you know, you can adopt the lean startup method if you guys know about that. So yeah, it's a guide, a simple guide to take you through the design process with a lot of practical exercises and things that you can put into practice straight away. So yeah, just you know, I'll share the link where you can kind of grab that in the comments below. And another thing that you know, that I'm if you want to know more about Smart Up Coach, which is what I do kind of like on the, you know, my part-time thing. I'm full-time into my ventures, but I'm also doing part-time coaching as well. If you want to know more about that, I'm offering an absolute free kind of free introductory kind of session, breakthrough session. At the very least, you'll be able to you know, go away with some practical advice and a meditation method to get you from procrastination into startup beast mode, you know, instantly. So yeah, we'll be able to share that in the comments below. But thank you so much, guys, for joining in, and thank you so much, Mia, for your time, and really appreciate chatting to you. It's lovely, really, really amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Malik. And we have, you know, Zach and our live viewers. Like, if you find it useful, like this information, please feel free to share it and let your friends know about it if they're looking to start their business, or if they could find any of this information useful. Like, please just share it. Oh,
Zach said he loves our
accent.
accents.
That's funny.
Cheers, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the next broadcast that we have, it's actually tomorrow at 4 p.m. And I'm gonna be with Jeanette, and we're gonna be talking about the do's and don'ts of attracting your dream clients. So thanks, Zach. Thank you
Very.
for watching, and speak to everybody soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Bye bye.